Tokyo is one of the biggest cities in the world, but it is also home to the strangest and most disturbing mysteries on Earth. This is a compilation of the weirdest true crimes and mysteries that happened here. For this video, I built a map that will visually show you exactly where each of these incidents occurred. We start at a small park in the north of Tokyo. 27 human body parts were found here, each one cut to exactly 20 centimeters. To this day, nobody knows why. I actually was at Inokashira Park only last month, and I took these duck pictures over here. So when I looked up weird murder cases in Japan, I was actually quite shocked to find something this close to where I live.
Subscribe.
April 23rd, 1994. A park cleaner starts her rounds. She opens a bin bag. A human ankle falls out. Police arrive. And what they find across Inokashira's park trash cans is unlike anything Tokyo has seen. 27 body parts, one person. Each piece sealed in its own black bag, each placed in a separate bin. The victim is Seiichi Kawamura, 35-year-old, an architect. He's gone to karaoke in Shinjuku the night before and never came home. Now here's where it gets disturbing. Every single piece has been cut to exactly 20 centimeters, not roughly, exactly, using an electric saw. The body had been completely drained of blood, which would require an industrial amount of water. This wasn't done in a bathroom. This required space, equipment, and knowledge. The cuts were clean. Whoever did this understood human anatomy. And 3 parts were never recovered: his head, his chest, and his genitals. Taken deliberately. Kept or destroyed somewhere else. Why those parts? Nobody's ever answered that. 2 witnesses saw men carrying black bags in the park the night before. Nobody got a clear look. Neither man was ever found. No murder site, no blood trail, no fingerprints, nothing. Just the bags, the pieces, and their precision.
Like the video.
There are 3 main theories. None of them are proven. The method screams professional disposal. The precision, the drainage, the calm distribution across separate bins. This is not how a lone, unstable killer operates. In 2015, 20 years after the murder, a man known as K came forward. He claimed he had angered a foreign crime ring operating in Tokyo in 1994. He believed Kawamura was killed by mistake, wrong place, wrong time, near K's world. Police investigated, nothing conclusive. But the method matches how criminal organizations handle body disposal. And the 1990s were exactly when Japan's old Yakuza structures were weakening and foreign networks were moving in. Someone with medical training. The cuts were too consistent to be an amateur. The 20 centimeter precision, the efficient blood drainage, the removal of parts that make identification and cause of death harder. Head for dental and facial ID, chest for organ injury patterns. This wasn't random mutilation, this was informed. The profile points to a doctor, a mortician, a veterinarian, someone trained to see the human body as a physical object. Some investigators reject the syndicate angle entirely. Their reasoning: if organized crime wanted Kawamura gone, they make him disappear completely. No body, no bags, no evidence. Leaving their remains in a public park is either a message or a mistake. This theory says Kawamura knew his killer, that something personal, a debt, a dispute, a relationship, triggered it. The mutilation was cover, not ritual. No one credible from his life was ever surfaced, but Japan's social pressure not to get involved with police may have kept key information buried. Japan has a 99% conviction rate. Sounds impressive, but that number only tells you what happens after someone is caught. When no one is caught, the system has almost nothing to fall back on. Japan's justice system was built around getting suspects to confess. When there's no suspect in the room, the investigation stalls. The forensic infrastructure to build a case independently without a confession has historically been weak. The DNA database. In 1994, it barely existed. Even now, it's small compared to the US or UK. The Setagaya family murder in the 2000s produced a full DNA profile of the killer. 25 years later, no match. Because if your killer isn't in the system, their profile sits there doing nothing. 2 men were seen in Inokashira Park the night with bags. They never came forward. In Japan, getting involved, becoming a named witness, carries real social cost. It's not cowardice, it's a deeply ingrained instinct not to make yourself part of someone else's problem. And it costs investigations everything. The anti-organized crime law passed in 1992, just 2 years before this murder. The old Yakuza structures were suddenly illegal. New foreign networks were filling the gap. Police were mapping a landscape that no longer existed. The Inokashira case landed right in the middle of that blind spot. 30 years, no arrest, no suspect, no explanation for why those 3 parts were taken. This park is 10 minutes from me. The person who did this probably still walked these streets for years after, maybe even longer. Next, we move from the north to the center of Tokyo. Otemachi is one of the richest districts in the city, but it is also home to a mysterious grave that killed 14 people. In the center of Tokyo, there is a small shrine. It's one of the most cursed locations in all of Japan. Here's why. The year is 935. Japan is ruled from Kyoto. The emperor sits at the center of everything: land, power, tax, law. But in the east, and what is now Tokyo, the court's grip is weak. Masakado is born into the Taira clan, from noble blood, but with no title, no position. From Kyoto he is waiting for an appointment that never comes.
Right now I have nothing, but that will not last forever.
Masakado gets ambushed. His own relatives, the Minamoto clan, attacked him in Nomoto without warning. He doesn't just survive, he burns their stronghold to the ground and kills his own uncle in the fire. Kyoto tries to mediate. It doesn't work. Masakado keeps fighting, keeps winning.
My enemies are crushed. The east is mine.
Then something shifts. A local man is hunted by the Hitachi governor. Masakado shelters him. The governor demands Masakado hand him over. Masakado refuses. He marches 1,000 men to the provincial offices. The governor has 3,000. It doesn't matter. Masakado takes down the governor's forces, burns the offices, and seizes the official court-appointed seal, effectively giving him control over the entire province of Hitachi. There's no going back now.
I am the new emperor. Let the court prepare itself.
In rapid succession, he takes over 8 eastern provinces. He appoints his own ministers, issues his own decrees. Then he declares himself emperor. Not the emperor, a parallel throne rivaling Kyoto itself. He calls himself Shino, the new emperor. In Kyoto, the court is in full panic. Bounties go out. His own cousin, Taira no Sadamori, joins in to end him. The final battle is February 1940. Shimoza province. Masakado fights, but this time the numbers are not with him. An arrow hits him.
So this is how it ends. But I will not rest.
His head is taken to Kyoto, displayed at the riverbank.
サブスクライブ
Do you guys know what public head display is? It's basically like in Game of Thrones. In Japanese you call it Sarashi Kubi. You cut off someone's head and display it publicly to warn others. People in Kyoto reported that for some reason his head was not decomposing. That even after he died, his teeth were still flinching. So people grew afraid of Masakado. So to appease his spirit, the people in Tokyo built a shrine for him. There are 3 cases where somebody tried to demolish or move the shrine. Every time someone tried, they died, and the curse started. September 1923. The Great Kanto earthquake flattens Tokyo. The finance ministry building in Otemachi gone. The government needs space. Someone looks at the Masakado shrine, built by terrified villagers over 1,000 years ago. They decide it's just a mound of dirt. They demolish it. They build a temporary ministry office on top of it. 3 months later, the finance minister drops dead, cause illness. Then the vice minister. Then the construction foreman. Over the next 2 years, 14 people connected to the ministry and the construction project die. 14 people connected to the ministry and the construction project die. More are injured, especially their legs. There is a belief that stepping on the shrine with your feet is what brings the particular punishment down on you. The temporary building comes down. The Minister of Internal Affairs holds a ceremony at the site in person. This isn't folklore. The finance minister's death is documented. The 14 deaths are on record. This incident is referenced on the National Tax Agency's official website, the Japanese government's own page. It is exactly 1,000 years after Masakado's death. A new finance ministry building has been constructed nearby. Not on the shrine this time. Lightning hits the building. Direct strike. 21 structures burn to the ground. 2 people die. Many more injured. On the exact 1000th anniversary of his execution, the ministry holds another ceremony. They make offerings. They pray. In Japan, this kind of timing is not treated as coincidence. After World War II, Japan is under American occupation. They begin reconstructing Tokyo. They start in Otemachi. The Masakado shrine is in the way. They send a bulldozer to demolish it. But the bulldozer overturns. The driver is thrown from the cab. He dies. More accidents follow. Japanese laborers are getting hurt. The Americans investigate. They start asking locals what exactly is buried there. The locals explain what the stone marker is, who it belongs to, what happened the last time someone tried this. America cancels the demolition. The United States military, the most powerful occupying force on Earth, backed down from a 1,000-year-old samurai's grave. This is documented.
Like the video.
Let's talk about some mythology. So the people in Japan, they believe that Masakado's head was still alive and it started flying. And I mean literally flying. It flew all the way to Tokyo until eventually it was shot down by a monk with an arrow. People don't know where this head landed, but everywhere where they think it landed, they build a shrine in his honor. Our shrine in question is also one of these shrines. That's why it's called the Grave of Masakado, because people believe the head is actually buried inside. But is it actually inside the shrine? So there's a 50-50 chance that it's true. After the 1923 earthquake, when they dug up the shrine, they found a stone chamber. So many people believe that the stone chamber is actually from a coffin. A coffin in Japan is something even more ancient. It's an ancient burial ground used for emperors and kings. So many people suspect that there's actually no relation to Masakado. When they opened the stone chamber, somebody already looted it, so no actual burial items were found. But there's still a 50% chance that somewhere the head is actually buried. This is Otemachi. Land prices here are among the highest on earth. And right here, this little patch, completely untouched. A hole in the skyline that nobody fills. The buildings around it are designed around it. Adjacent offices arrange their layouts so they never turn their backs to the shrine. Windows are not placed where they would look down on it. Here's what is verified. The shrine has a bank account at the Mitsubishi UFJ branch right next door. The account is maintained by a local volunteer group for upkeep. The name on the account is Taira no Masakado. A man who died in 1940 has a bank account in Tokyo's financial district. In 2020, renovation work started on the shrine. Within days, a small earthquake hit. Epicenter in Ibaraki Prefecture, Masakado's home territory. Every generation gets its incident. Every generation decides whether this is worth pushing. So nobody pushes. Next, we move to my neighborhood. There's a small shrine famous for its lucky cats. But it is also connected to one of the most brutal political assassinations in Japanese history. Every single day, thousands of tourists crowd onto this Tokyo shrine to take photos with thousands of cute, waving cats. But if you walk exactly 30 seconds past the gift shop, into the completely empty graveyard next door, you find the tomb of a man who was hacked to pieces in the snow for opening Japan to the world. This is the story of how Tokyo's cutest tourist trap completely erased a bloody political assassination.
Watch until the end.
If you look up Gotokuchi on YouTube, you find 100 videos telling you the exact same wholesome legend. Back in 1600, a wealthy feudal lord was caught in a massive thunderstorm near this temple. As he sheltered under a tree, he looked over and saw the temple's priest cat beckoning him inside with a raised paw.
I looked over. The priest cat was sitting at the gate, paw raised, staring right at me.
Curious, the lord walked toward the cat. A second later, lightning struck the exact tree he had been standing under.
I took one step toward it. Behind me, the tree I'd been standing under exploded. Just smoke and splinters where I was standing a second ago.
The cat saved his life. In gratitude, the wealthy lord became the temple's patron, filling it with wealth, ensuring its survival, and cementing his family legacy here forever.
I gave everything I had to that temple. My wealth, my name, my family's future. It was the least I could do for a cat that saved my life.
It's a beautiful story. It's why people buy these little porcelain cats today. But modern tourism leaves out the sequel, because 2 centuries later, a descendant of the exact same family line took control of Japan. His name was
Ienaosuke.
And his life would end in a way that no lucky cat could prevent. In the 1850s, Japan was entirely closed to the outside world. Enter the Americans.
Then I saw them. 4 black warships on the horizon, larger than anything I'd ever seen in my life. And they weren't asking.
Commodore Perry arrived in Tokyo Bay with massive, terrifying black ships, demanding Japan end its isolation or face total war. The country was paralyzed by fear. Naosuke stepped up. As the chief minister to the shogun, he bypassed the emperor and signed a treaty with the Americans, forcing Japan's door open to foreign trade.
I put my seal on the document. I knew what I was doing. I knew what it would cost me. I signed it anyway.
To the political elites and traditional samurai, this wasn't progress, it was high treason. They believed Naosuke had sold out Japan's soul to foreigners. Anti-foreign sentiment boiled over, and Naosuke reacted ruthlessly, executing his political enemies in what became known as the Ansai Purge.
My enemies weren't going to stop, so I stopped them first. Arrests, trials, executions. They called it a massacre. I called it survival.
He became the most hated man in the country. On a freezing morning in March 1860, outside the gates of Edo Castle, it all came to a brutal end. Amid a heavy blizzard, 17 masterless samurai ambushed Naosuke.
I never saw them coming. 17 men, waiting for me in the blizzard. By the time I understood what was happening, it was already over.
In a matter of minutes, the snow turned red. Naosuke was dragged out into the freezing cold and decapitated right there in the street.
Subscribe.
Which brings us to today. 200 years later, Naosuke is buried right here, literally steps away from the gift shop. But if you look around the shrine, nobody knows who he is. His assassination is forgotten. His role in shaping modern Japan is entirely overshadowed. Why? Because Gotokuchi is the perfect textbook example of a strange cultural phenomenon, the tourist amnesia pattern. Phase 1. A deep, complex, often violent historical event occurs. Phase 2. The location attaches itself to a highly marketable symbol, in this case a lucky cat. Phase 3. Global tourism and social media algorithms catch wind of it. The aesthetic gets hyper-optimized for Instagram and TikTok. Phase 4. Complete cultural erasure. The original history stripped away because cute visuals sell merchandise, but dark political history doesn't. And this doesn't just happen in Japan. It happens everywhere. People queue up for hours to take smiling selfies at the Berlin Wall or pose for fashion photos at historical disaster sites. The aesthetics completely cannibalize the history.
Like the video.
Did the story with the cat really happen? The answer is probably not. But I got another interesting fact for you, so keep on watching.
Watch until the end.
So when the people attacked Naosuke, you think they carry blades because they were samurai, right? What if I tell you they were carrying American-made weapons? So here's the story. When Perry first came to Japan, he gave the Japanese gifts.
Perry didn't just bring ships. He brought gifts, rifles, a cannon, a working telegraph machine. He was showing us exactly what America was capable of, and exactly what we were not.
And one of these gifts was an American-made Colt revolver. And somehow this Colt landed in the hands of a famous Japanese blacksmith. And this Japanese blacksmith copied it. So at the time, Japanese people knew what guns were. They just never seen a gun like this.
Within years, our craftsmen had taken apart every weapon Perry brought and rebuilt it from memory. Then they made it better.
And this blacksmith was very skilled, so he actually managed to copy it, and he also engraved it with cherry blossom motifs and made it very pretty. Somehow this gun landed in the hands of a man named Mori, and this Mori guy was one of the 17 assassins. So how do we know any of this? So when Naosuke left Edo Castle, he was not traveling alone. He was a famous man. So he was actually traveling with 60 people, and only 8 of the 60 people actually died. So we got a bunch of survivors, and one of the survivors wrote everything down he saw. So what this guy saw when the assassins first attacked was this. He said this Mori guy pulled out a Colt revolver and shot one of Naosuke's retainers. They kill a guy for opening up Japan to America, and they use American invented weapons to do so. So here's another interesting fact. So the place where this happened is the Sakurada Gate. This is a real location that still exists today. So you can visit it and say, here's the place where Naosuke was beheaded. Now this one is a bit weird. This tiny island in the south is technically Tokyo. You can take a 2-hour ferry to get there. But once you learn that over 2,000 people came here just to jump into the volcano, you might not want to go. Did you know Tokyo has an island 2 hours away by ferry, Izu Oshima Island? In the 1930s, 944 people jumped into a volcano there in a single year. That number, 944 people in 1933 alone, that isn't random. It happened because of one person. On February 12, 1933, a 21-year-old university student named Kyoko Matsumoto jumped into Mount Mihara's crater. She had been in a relationship with a female classmate. In 1933, in Japan, this was forbidden. She left a letter. It said, "Dearest, I'm bewildered to distractions by the perplexities of maturing womanhood. I can't stand the strain no longer. What shall I do? I should like to jump into a volcano." Her goodbye note was reprinted in the newspapers across Japan. Her classmate, Masako Tomita, told everyone at school what happened. The story spread. Kyoko Matsumoto became a celebrity. And then people started arriving. 3 things created the epidemic. First, the media. Newspapers sensationalized the story. They ran dramatized pieces about the dangers of same-sex relationships. They printed her farewell note. They made her death romantic. They made it mean something. Second, people had been blocked from other methods. Tokyo had put barriers on skyscrapers to prevent high-rise suicides. Mount Mihara became the alternative, the accessible way out. Third, the romanticization stuck. Young people read the story. They saw Matsumoto as tragic, as choosing love over society. They decided to follow her example. Within months, Mount Mihara became a destination. Ferry companies set up daily steamship lines. The fishing community prospered. Tourists arrived to watch. Local guides organized sightseeing tours to the volcano. People rode donkeys up the mountain, specifically to stand at what became known as Suicide Point. By December 1933, over 500 had jumped. By the end of 1930s, over 2,000. The media kept covering it. Each death got attention. Each attention spawned more deaths. The cycle fed itself. This history is so culturally significant in Japan that it entered fiction. Koji Suzuki wrote his novel Ring in 1991. The story centered on a cursed videotape that kills whoever watches it 7 days later. At the core of the curse is Sadako Yamamura, and before her, her mother Shizuko. In the novel, Shizuko Yamamura was a psychic from Izu Oshima. She predicted the eruption of Mount Mihara with her psychic powers. When her brother leaked this prediction to the press, she became famous overnight. At Tokyo University, professor named Dr. Heihachiro Ikoma, intrigued by her abilities, began a relationship with her. Then she performed a public demonstration of telepathy, which she failed. The press branded her a fraud. Depressed, Shizuko eventually returned to Oshima Island and committed suicide by jumping into Mount Mihara. Suzuki didn't choose Mount Mihara by accident. His inspiration came from a real historical incident, a case from 1910, where a self-proclaimed clairvoyant named Chizuko Mifune was studied by Tokyo University professor Tomokichi Fukure. The press questioned her methods, mocked her abilities, and the ridicule drove her to suicide at age 24. But Suzuki also knew the real history of Mount Mihara itself. He knew that in the 1930s, over 2,000 people had jumped into the same crater. He understood what the mountain meant in Japanese culture, a place of despair, a destination for the hopeless. The 1998 film, directed by Hideo Nakata, became a cultural phenomenon. Sadako, pale, long-haired, crawling from a television, became the iconic face of Japanese horror. But the entire curse is rooted in Mount Mihara, in real suicide, in real history. The distinct culture of Izu Oshima is built entirely around Mount Mihara's spiritual power. The people call it the mountain Gojinka. It means fire of the gods in Japanese. For thousands of years, Mount Mihara was enshrined as Mihara Daimyojin, the chief god of Oshima. The mountain itself was the object of worship, not as a danger, but as a deity. There is a folk love song from the island that goes, "I was raised by Oshima's sacred fire, smoke forever rising in my heart." That's not poetic exaggeration. That's a culture people grew up watching smoke rise from the crater. They built their lives around a mountain that could destroy everything at any moment. Originally, there was only a torii gate at the foot of the mountain. In the Taisho era, a concrete shrine was built in the middle of Mount Mihara, and a small shrine was built at the top. This shrine burned during the 1950 and 51 eruption, buried in lava. It was rebuilt. Then in 1986, when the volcano erupted again, the lava flow split into two to avoid the shrine and flowed down the surrounding low ground, thus saving the shrine from being buried. The people of Izu Oshima interpret this as a divine intervention. The god protected its own shrine. They understand eruptions not as disasters, but as the wrath of the mountain god. They live with that understanding. They worship at shrines on its slopes. They build their homes knowing that at any moment fire could pour down from the summit. This isn't just living near a volcano. This is a culture built on sacred coexistence with something both divine and deadly. For thousands of years, the people of Izu Oshima developed a way to exist in the shadow of Gojinka, the sacred fire. Before the 1930s, the island already had a dark reputation. During the medieval period and into the 1800s, the Japanese government used Izu Oshima as an exile colony. Criminals, political prisoners, people the state decided were dangerous, one-way tickets, separated from everyone they knew. The founder of Shugendo, a religious sect, was exiled there for 3 years. The emperor saw the new religion as a threat to his power. For centuries, Izu Oshima was Tokyo's dumping ground, a place to send people you wanted gone, an island where the ground itself was unstable. When a place is marked as a punishment zone, when centuries of history are built on exile and separation, that weight doesn't disappear. It festers. It becomes part of how the place is understood. By the time the 1930s arrived, the island already carried darkness. Next, let's go to Ikebukuro, famous for its nightlife. An office worker gets up and slits the throat of the person sitting next to him. Was it revenge, work pressure, or an ancient Edo curse? On the 31st floor of Sunshine 60, inside a law office, everything is exactly as it should be. Stacks of paper, fluorescent light, the sound of keyboards. Someone answers a call. Hi. Someone else across the room. Hi. Two co-workers sit close to each other. Same desk they sat at for years. Normal Tuesday. One of them stands up. He moves around behind the other man's chair. And then he pulls out a knife and stabs him in the neck. The keyboards stop. Someone screams. Blood is on the floor. The office. 30 seconds ago, a completely normal place, is now a horror scene. The building is called Sunshine 60, a landmark in Ikebukuro, a 60-story tower of glass and steel that has watched over the east side of the city since 1978. On the 31st floor, behind glass doors, sits the Ikebukuro branch of Odaya Law Office, one of the largest consumer law firms in Japan. 235 attorneys, 65 offices across the country. The kind of place that runs commercials. The kind of place that looks from the outside like it has everything figured out. That morning, a 50-year-old employee named Watanabe Reto arrived for work like any other day. He sat at his desk. He had a backpack with him. Inside that backpack were 3 knives. He had brought them from home. His co-worker, Yoshino Hiroki, in his 30s, was sitting nearby. At 11:45 a.m., Watanabe stood up, moved behind Yoshino and stabbed him in the neck. Not once, multiple times. Yoshino was transported to the hospital, unconscious. He was pronounced dead shortly after. Watanabe did not run. He walked out of the office, still carrying the knife, made his way to the police box outside Ikebukuro Station's east exit, one of the most busiest corners in the city, and turned himself in. When police interviewed him, Watanabe said this: "I held a grudge against Yoshino. I reached my limit. I wanted to cause him pain. I thought it was okay if he died, so I stabbed him. I reached my limit." Those 4 words are the whole story. Not the knives, not the day, not the office on the 31st floor. The story is what happened in the time before that moment. The months, maybe years of something building, silently, invisibly, inside a man sitting at a desk in one of the most orderly, disciplined work cultures on the planet. To understand Watanabe, you have to understand the world he was living in. Japan has a word with no real equivalent in English: karoshi, death from overwork. Not a metaphor, a legal category. People die from it, and Japan publishes a government report on it every year. This is a country where 80, 90, even 100-hour work weeks are not exceptional. For certain industries, law, finance, media, this is just the baseline, and the culture around those hours is what makes it different from anywhere else. When you enter a Japanese company, the hierarchy is everything. Your boss does not just manage your workload, he shapes your future, your promotions, your standing in the room. Saying no, even to something unreasonable, is not really an option. The culture has a name for causing that kind of friction: meiwaku, being a burden, disrupting the harmony. It is one of the worst things you can be. So what do you do with that anger? What do you do when someone at work treats you badly for a long time and every structure around you says, absorb it, don't make a scene, come back tomorrow? You compress it and you keep compressing it. Japan passed its first law specifically against workplace power harassment in 2019, which means it took until 2019 to officially acknowledge that using your rank to humiliate someone below you was wrong. That law exists because the behavior was everywhere, and almost no one leaves. Quitting is seen as failure. Staying in a job that is hurting you is not just common, it's expected. The social cost of walking away is often higher than the personal cost of staying. When you seal a pressure system with no valve, no exit, no complaint, no way to say this is wrong, it does not stay stable forever. Most of the time, it collapses inward. Suicide rates among middle-aged Japanese men remain amongst the highest in the developed world. Depression is massively underreported because seeking help is still seen as weakness. But sometimes, rarely and catastrophically, it goes the other direction. Watanabe Reito was 50 years old. He had probably been inside the system for decades. And one Tuesday morning in July, with 3 knives in a backpack, he made a decision that ended one life and destroyed another. The people of ancient Japan already had a name for this. In Japanese folklore, there is a creature called Gashadokuro, a giant skeleton, 15 times the height of a man, assembled from the bones of people who died with unsatisfying grudges. People who were worked to nothing, who starved, who gave everything and received nothing back. Their rage did not disappear when they died. It accumulated, it fused together, bone by bone, until it became something could not be ignored. The Gashadokuro wanders at night. It bites off the heads of anyone it finds, and the only warning, the only sign it is near is a ringing in your ears. Ancient Japanese people were not describing a literal skeleton, they were describing something real. The idea that silent suffering, when denied long enough, does not stay silent. It gathers, it finds a shape, and eventually it cannot be compressed anymore. They were not just ghost stories told around fires for entertainment. They were admissions, a cultural acknowledgement that when you deny people dignity, when you grind them down with no exit, no voice, no relief, that energy does not dissolve. It builds into something the whole room will eventually feel. Thousands of years ago, the people of this country looked at suffering and said, "This has consequences. This leaves a mark on the world." They wrote that warning into their mythology, into their monsters, into the stories they told their children. And then, somehow, the same civilization built one of the most suffocating work cultures on Earth. On the 31st floor of a landmark tower in Ikebukuro, on a Tuesday morning in July, a man named Watanabe sat on his desk. For the last time, he had reached his limit, and a 30-year-old named Yoshino never went home. The skeleton keeps building, we just keep handing it more bones, and we keep acting surprised when it starts to walk. Let's go 100 years into the past to Tokyo University, one of Japan's most elite universities. What if I told you that Japan's top scientists drove a young, innocent girl to commit suicide right here? Ring is based on a real person. Not loosely. The scandal, the professor, the name. All of it pulled straight from a true story Japan tried to bury, and nobody knows this. The ring might be real. So the ring has 3 real-life inspirations. I already made 2 videos about it. The first case is the case of Oshima, where 2,000 people jumped into a volcano. So this really happened in the 1930s in Japan, and this is one of the inspirations for Ring, where Sadako, the ring and the girl, her mother, also jumped into a volcano. The second inspiration is Okiku, the story of a servant in Edo period Japan who was thrown into a well and then became an angry spirit in Onryo. This is also a real-life story in Japan, and as we've spoken in the last video, it might have been real. The third inspiration for Ring is today's video, the story about Chizuko, a woman in 1910 Japan who claimed to have psychic powers. Now this is also a real story, and here Suzuki-san, the author of The Ring, didn't have to invent anything. He straight up just took real-life events for a story. Everything I'm gonna present you today is exactly how it happened in The Ring. Keep on watching. It started with a missing 50 yen. 1908, a 22-year-old woman named Mifune Chizuko tells her husband exactly where his missing money is. Inside the family's Buddhist altar. She's right. Her in-laws accuse her of hiding it herself. The marriage falls apart. Back at her family home, her brother-in-law, a hypnosis obsessive, puts her in a trance and tells her she can see through solid objects. She starts passing every test he runs. A mining company hires her to locate coal underground. She finds it and gets paid the equivalent of 200 million yen. Word reaches Tokyo. A psychology professor at Tokyo Imperial University, Japan's most elite institution, hears about her. His name is Fukurai. He tests her privately. She performs, and he believes every bit of it. He goes public. September 15, 1910. Chizuko is brought before Japan's top academics. The test: read characters sealed inside a lead pipe without opening it. She gets it right, twice, but the characters she named matched Fukurai's practice materials, not the actual test materials. Nobody could prove she cheated. The press didn't need proof. Within days, she's a national fraud. Her face on every newspaper. The humiliation is total. 4 months later, January 19, 1911, she took her own life. She was 24. So Chizuko came from Kumamoto, which is in Kyushu, at the very bottom of Japan. A poor girl from the countryside develops psychic abilities. She realized she can do certain things other people cannot do. And she starts making money with this ability. So she goes to Tokyo and she thinks she can make it. She thinks she can become some media sensation. And she truly believes in her ability and she wants to show it to the whole world. Maybe partly inspired by the professor. But the media mocks her as a fraud and this hurts her so much she takes her own life. This is the exact same story as in The Ring. Word for word, identical. So Suzuki-san, the author of The Ring, didn't just make things up. He literally put real-life events in his book. Even the name is the same, Chizuko and Shizuko. He only changed one syllable of the name. And even more weird, Sadako is also real. Japan in 1910 is sprinting toward modernity. Western science, Western logic. The whole project of becoming a world power depends on looking rational. And then this woman shows up saying she can see through metal. It becomes a proxy war. Physicists ran counter experiments. Universities took sides. The media ran it for months. A film called Senrigan even hit cinemas weeks after the experiment just to cash in. Fukurai found a second psychic, Nagao Ikubo, who claimed she could burn images onto photographic film using only her mind. She faced the same treatment. She was gone by February 1911. 2 women, same professor, both dead within weeks of each other. Fukurai published a book defending all of it and got forced out of the university. The whole thing became known as the Senrigan affair, a wound Japan didn't talk about for decades. After the Meiji Restoration in Japan wanted to become a dominant power in Asia. They basically wanted to join Europe and America and become a global power. So a lot of things, like for example psychic abilities, were seen as pseudoscience, something to basically get rid of. Because in the West, with science, this was seen as nothing but hoaxes. So if some woman from Kumamoto, the bottom of Japan, is coming to Tokyo and claiming she has some powers, of course they try to push her down. Of course people will say she is nothing but a hoax. And that's exactly what happened. But what do you guys think about the professor? 2 people under his care died, ended their own lives. Do you think he's just a scam artist? Or do you think he truly believes in psychic abilities? Or do you think he had some relationship with the woman and tricked them? So in the novel and also in the books, Shizuko has a relationship with the professor. And they have a child, and the child is Sadako, the girl from The Ring. In real life, nothing like that happened. As far as we know, there's still a possibility that they had a secret relationship. And even more, she was not the only woman under him. After Shizuko died, he immediately got another woman who also claimed to have psychic powers. So in my opinion, there's something weird about this character. And if you guys don't know, in the movie, in the Japanese version, he is also the one who eventually pushes Sadako down the well. Koji Suzuki is writing Ring in 1991. He needs to explain how images get onto a cursed tape with no camera. He comes across Nensha, psychic projection onto film, starts reading, finds Fukurai, finds Shizuko. The story was already written. Chizuko becomes Shizuko, the mother in Ring. One syllable different. Fukurai becomes Dr. Ikuma, the professor destroyed for believing in her. The experiment, the media pylon, the scandal, lifted straight from 1910. But here's what nobody talks about. After Chizuko was gone, Fukurai kept working, found new subjects, kept testing. One of them, years later, her name was Sadako Takahashi. The name of the most iconic character in the Ring franchise, taken from a real woman, who worked with a real professor who destroyed Shizuko. Suzuki didn't build this world, he found it. Let's go to the far east of Tokyo, a shrine worshipping the Japanese god of war. A brother uses a samurai blade to cut off the head of his own sister, right here on these grounds. A shrine dedicated to the god of war, a murder committed with a samurai sword, a twisted family feud that ended in a bloodbath. Tokyo police rushed to the Tomioka Hachiman shrine after reports of a brutal killing. The victim, the shrine's high priestess, the weapon, a katana, and the murderer, her own brother. We must first understand Hachiman, the god to whom the shrine is dedicated. Hachiman is revered as the protector of warriors, embodying martial prowess and honor. He is often associated with the Emperor Ojin, deified as the god of war. Some say Emperor Ojin was just a legend. Others believe he was a real king in the late 3rd to early 4th century, who then transcended humanity, becoming Hachiman. For centuries, samurai sought Hachiman's blessing, viewing him as their divine guardian. This shrine was meant to honor him, but in the end, it became the site of a samurai-style execution. Was it what Hachiman wanted in the end? For centuries, the Tomioka family controlled this shrine. It was more than a place of worship. It was power, prestige, and wealth. But where there is power, there is conflict. Established in 1627, the Tomioka family has claimed to protect the sacred Hachiman shrine. But how much of their history is really true? It's almost impossible to know. Records are vague, secrets are buried. What we do know is this. When the sacred shrine was established in 1627, the Tomioka family took charge. But how many leaders have really ruled it since then? Nobody knows. However, beneath its secrets, a power struggle simmered within the Tomioka family, primarily between Nagako Tomioka and their younger brother, Shigenaga. In 1995, Shigenaga Tomioka became chief priest, but his reign was short-lived. By 2001, he was removed from power, accused of financial fraud. He was accused of embezzling money and using shrine resources for personal gain, which caused a major scandal within the family and the shrine's community. With Shigenaga gone, his sister, Nagako Tomioka, stepped in. Appointed as the shrine's chief priestess in 2001, she faced fierce opposition. They saw her as an outsider, and her leadership was viewed by some as false. But Shigenaga wasn't done. For years he waited, plotting his revenge. December 7, 2017. It was supposed to be just another night at the shrine, but as Nagako stepped out of her car, She didn't know her brother and his wife were waiting, sword in hand. He struck. The katana slashed through her body. A single precise cut. She never stood a chance. Her driver tried to stop him, but was chased by his wife and wounded. All this happened just outside the shrine, near the Hachiman bridge. After the killing, they entered the shrine. Shigenaga turned the blade first on his wife, and then finally on himself. The entire family feud ended in a massacre. A shrine dedicated to the Japanese god of war. A murder carried out with the weapon of the samurai. A family destroyed by power. Was it Hachiman's will? The Tomioka Hachiman shrine still stands today, but many believe this was no ordinary murder. The Tomioka Hachiman shrine remains, but its legacy is stained with blood. What do you think? Was this just a crime, or something much more? Thank you for joining me on this journey through history and mystery. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Until next time. For the end, let's go to Shibuya. This became the home of the most famous and most frequent sightings of a mysterious creature running the streets and back alleys of Tokyo during the late bubble era. A driver notices something moving beside his car on the expressway. At first, it looks like a stray dog. Then he checks his speed, 100 kilometers an hour. And the thing is still keeping up. The driver slows down. The animal turns his head. It has a human face. Not distorted, not monstrous, just human. And before disappearing into the dark, it says, over the next few months, thousands of people across Japan will claim to see the same creature, a human-faced dog, running through Tokyo at night. And somehow, this became one of the biggest urban legends in modern Japanese history. The strangest part is not the monster. The strangest part is when it appeared. If you played the Yakuza games, you might have heard about the bubble era of Japan. It's one of the richest eras in Japanese history, but it also has a dark side. And this dark side gave rise to a Japanese monster. A monster that even I think is extremely weird.
Watch until the end.
The Jinmen-ken spread before social media existed. No internet, no smartphones, no viral clips, just rumors. School rumors, late night radio, magazines, television. And somehow that was enough. By 1990, people all across Japan already knew the story. But nobody could agree on exactly what the Jinmen-ken was. Some said it sprinted down highways faster than cars. Others claimed it hid in entertainment districts behind restaurants and bars, digging through garbage late at night. Most stories followed the same pattern. Someone sees a stray dog. They get closer. The dog slowly turns around. And the face isn't canine at all. It's human. Usually middle-aged, tired looking, almost annoyed. Then it talks. That detail is why the story exploded, because those aren't the words people expect from a monster. It sounded more like somebody exhausted after work. So yesterday I was in Inokashira Park. Late at night, I saw a Japanese businessman sitting alone, just singing to himself. And not quietly, I mean very loud. The whole park could hear singing. I think that's what Japanese work culture does to you. It is so hard, it breaks you at some point. And I think this Japanese work culture in the late 1980s gave rise to a monster.
サブスクライブ
The late 1980s in Japan looked unbelievable from the outside. The economy was exploding. Tokyo property prices became absurd. Japanese companies were buying famous buildings overseas, expensive artwork, luxury assets. For a moment, it felt like Japan's growth would never end. But daily life underneath the boom felt different. Workers were sleeping less, commuting longer, drinking with bosses after work almost every night. And during the richest moment in modern Japanese history, Japan already had a word for people collapsing from overwork: karoshi, death from overwork. That existed before the bubble burst, not after, during it. And around the exact same time, stories about a burned-out creature wandering Tokyo started spreading across the country. A creature that looked half human, half animal, avoiding people, living near garbage, running endlessly through the night, and constantly repeating the same thing: leave me alone. If you watched my previous video about Kojisake Onna, you know the dangers of media. In the case of Kojisake Onna, one old woman's story about a monster she saw led to a nationwide panic, where schools were shut down, police organized, parents didn't let their children outside. Or the case of Mount Mihara, where one schoolgirl's death, jumping into a volcano, spawned 900 copycats. 900 people jumping into the same volcano just because they read a story about it. I think this case is very similar. The media spread the story until everybody knew about it, so the rumor spread.
Like the video.
One reason the Jinmenken spread so aggressively was timing. Japanese TV in the late 1980s loved urban legends, and the story had everything: horror, comedy, shock value, and just enough realism to sound possible. Some researchers and writers later claimed the rumor may have been intentionally encouraged just to see how fast it would spread, which makes the story even stranger, because the Jinmenken may not have started as folklore. It may have started as a social experiment. And once television picked it up, the rumor escaped completely. Soon people were reporting sightings everywhere: highways, alleyways, school routes, parking lots, exactly like Kojisake Onna a decade earlier. One rumor became national. Then the country started seeing it everywhere. But before you think it's all fake, there are actually sightings that go back to the Edo period of Japan. It might not be all fake. It might not be all exhausted workers in the bubble era. It might not be all media spreading disinformation.
Leave a comment.
But the idea itself was older than the bubble economy, much older. There are records from the Edo period describing human-faced dogs being displayed as oddities in Tokyo, which means the 1998 Jinmenken wasn't entirely new. Japan already had the image buried somewhere in its cultural memory. The bubble era just gave it a new personality. Not violent, not demonic, just exhausted. That's probably why the legend survived. The Jinmenken never really behaves like yokai. It behaves like somebody who had psychological burnout so hard they stopped caring about other people completely. And honestly, that may have been more relatable than frightening. But before you think the Jinmenken is real, there's some important information you might want to hear. So there are some stories dating back to the Edo period about the Jinmenken. One story is in 1810, where a baby is born from a puppy with a human face. The reason why it was born with a human face is because back then there was a superstition that claimed that syphilis patients could cure themselves by having sex with a female dog. And from the result, a puppy was born with a human face. So basically this is where the Edo version comes from. This was a sideshow curiosity that people actually paid to see. So this is something that apparently actually existed. Also, another theory of the origin of the story is that the 1980 boom only happened because an actor, a Japanese actor, Matoba Kochi, claimed that he actually invented the story with his friends and spread the rumor himself. Another theory is that the comedian Tanaka Yuchi, he said on a radio show that he deliberately spread the rumor as an experiment, basically to show to Japanese people how easily a rumor can spread. The first appearance of the Jinmenken was actually on a magazine called Pop Teen Editor, and basically this comes from this comedian. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think the Jimenkan is real or not? So don't forget to subscribe and like the video right now. And if you liked the video so far, also don't forget to support me on my Patreon. The bubble collapsed. Stock prices crashed. Property prices fell for years. And the mood of the country changed with it. Eventually, the Jimenkan disappeared too. Because urban legends usually reflect the anxieties of the period that created them. And maybe that's why the story still feels strange today. Not because of the human face, not because it could talk, but because of every possible thing this creature could have said. The only thing it wanted was to be left alone. And in 1998 Japan, a lot of people probably understood exactly what it meant. And that was all the locations. Of course, there are many more true crimes and mysteries in Tokyo. Like this video if you want a part 2 and leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the dark and mysterious side of Japan. Thanks for watching.